Welcome back to Simplifying the State, the podcast where we break down politics so you don't have to try to figure out why the National Guard might be deploying to St. Louis soon. As always, I'm Adam Watson.
I'm Nicholas Perrin.
And I'm Drew Garfinkel.
All right, now before we start, if you would be so kind as to rate the show on Spotify and follow the podcast wherever you are listening, as well as share it with anyone you think would enjoy it, such as friends, family, or a random person you see at Starbucks. Okay. Today's topic is going to be the collapse of the Nepalese government that happened recently, and a little bit of background on that. Nepal famously has a lot of corruption within the country. The young people have been discontent about it for a while, along with issues they've had with the economy, the lack of jobs. One big issue was that a lot of Nepalese citizens have been leaving the country for other regions, for other countries, some in Southeast Asia, some even in the United States, with money that the Nepalese citizens who went to the United States would then send it back home. That made up something, I think, like around 20% of the nation's economy. So obviously that's not ideal. So the government instituted a social media ban within the country. That seems to have been the spark that lit about a week's worth of protests, mostly violent, which included the burning down of the presidential palace and other buildings within the capital. So what are your guys' initial thoughts on the situation that unfolded there?
Well, first off, what we saw was very violent, and it was very effective. I mean, the government, the prime minister resigned in as little as, 9 days, I'm pretty sure?
Yeah, I think.
Or
yeah,
maybe it was
like
even less than that. Yeah. So, the violent protests were very effective in Nepal. I'm not saying that they'll be effective anywhere, definitely not. But, what we saw was a very fast collapse of the Nepalese government. And even afterwards, the young people of Nepal were able to help rebuild and to clean up the streets and everything. So it was like a pretty controversial situation that turned pretty wholesome pretty fast, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I agree with Nicholas. In a matter of days, they instituted change, which it's kind of impressive how quickly they took down the people in power.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all part of in the global south, we're seeing a lot of, revolutions, uprisings, protests from younger generations who have newly had access to this new form of communication. Kind of goes back to what we talked about last week. Social media has kind of changed how people communicate. And so as a result, information and organizing has become a lot, more easy to do. So as a result, we're seeing a lot more revolutions from Gen Z in the global south. The protests in Nepal mirror ones that were in Indonesia, Kenya. I think just a lot of protests from Gen Z about corruption in their countries.
Yeah, we definitely touched on it last week. Nicholas talked about censorship for a bit, if I believe. I think it was him.
Yeah, right? It was him who talked about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to see the tie-in because, these people, because of the censorship, they took action and made change.
Yeah, but alongside the corruption thing, one thing that you, Adam, forgot to point out was not only, the social media ban was the spark that lit it, but there were the gasoline, everything from that was... Yeah, and difference in wealth from a lot of nepotism in the government. Some politicians' kids were really rich than the politicians themselves. Meanwhile, most of the country of Nepal is in extreme poverty.
Yeah, there was this one thing that I was reading where it was this photo from the child of an influential person in Nepal who made a Christmas tree of luxury brand boxes like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, etc. And then a lot of people on social media got understandably very upset about that because of just the vast amount of economic issues that most of the country is facing. I mean, there were, like I said, there was a good chunk of their economy was provided by people who were in the United States who were sending money back home to their families. I mean, the average Nepalese citizen was making $1,400 USD per year. which I mean, comparatively is insane.
Yeah, those were the main reasons that sparked the protests, and a lot of the reason that like it happened was just how much, well, I guess how little the government had taken measures to like reduce that poverty and corruption. And yeah, the big reason that the new interim prime minister and the way she was elected was really interesting to see and kind of novel, but I'll let someone else get into that. But yeah, new Prime Minister Sushila Karki was the main reason that she was elected as interim Prime Minister is because she's always been like, she's always wanted justice. She's always been really anti corruption. Like one time, the like Nepalese Congress wanted to make her chief of police, but she denied that, even though it would in theory give her more power, simply because she wanted to, continue her job and continue providing justice as, well, was she Chief Justice or was she just like
I think she was a very
Yeah,
high
she was the
ranking,
Supreme Court Justice.
yeah,
yeah.
I think.
former Supreme Court Chief Justice.
How was she elected? Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So it was a very, I wouldn't really even call it an election so much as I would kind of call it, I mean, for those of you who don't know, it was kind of the most famous thing from this is that basically so the whole thing didn't really have a unified leader for the groups who were protesting, but basically there was kind of a vote on Discord, basically, of who should be the nation's next prime minister. And she won that. I suppose you could call it an election, although it's a pretty odd election. But yeah, that's basically how she got elected, or at least was chosen as the person that they would all accept as the interim prime minister. So, and it kind of goes back to, it's kind of like a full circle thing. The social media ban caused the protests to begin, and then they used social media to elect, or at least throw their support behind the new government and prime minister.
Yeah, the thought of them using Discord to decide is kind of funny to me. Like using a Discord poll to decide the fate of your country. Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's kind of funny.
Yeah, so according to the New York Times, it was reported that more than 100,000 citizens were using Discord to elect the nominee for the interim leader. The server was described as, quote, the Parliament of Nepal, and they proposed her name for meetings with the army. So it's just really interesting to see, how these new uprisings, protests, revolution movements are utilizing new technology and stuff to include more people in decision-making processes, as opposed to like back in the day where it was like basically they had, if you wanted to do an election like this, you had to organize one. But I mean, now you can just get someone to hop on Discord and basically cast their vote. I mean, it's not super secure, but seems to have been effective, at least for Nepal.
Yeah, and I mean, like a lot of young people today support more, I guess, like more voting reforms, like whether it be like ranked choice or runoff or like even direct democracy, which is basically what this was. I guess this is like a good showcase of what those voting reforms could be and whether they could be like effective in the future. I mean,
right.
They seem like it's on a pretty small scale, but they seem to have been pretty effective here.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think this could happen in the U.S.?
Not anytime soon.
Talked about? Not, yeah.
Maybe on a local scale, but like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely not like country, because like comparatively, Nepal is way smaller than the U.S. So like organizing that many people from that many different places would be a whole nother thing.
Right. Yep. Wait, Drew, do you mean like the overthrow of like a government like we saw in there, or like the direct democracy?
What Nicholas was talking about the like
direct democracy thing, or like ranked choice
democracy,
voting?
Yeah, or reforms to voting.
Yeah. No, I mean it could happen. There's several places in the U.S. that do ranked choice voting. One of the most prominent of which is New York City. They did notably ranked choice voting in their primary. I think they do it for the general. Yeah, so I mean, it's possible we could see it spread nationwide if there was enough support behind it. I think we've kind of talked about the positives and like how well it went. I also think it's worth pointing out that, like 72 people died and there were like 2,100 who were injured. And also the
Yeah.
whole thing was like extremely violent. I think there was a video that I saw, which is basically like the finance minister, I think, was like being chased through the streets. Like one guy, like, in like old karate movies where they like jump up and kick them in the air. Someone basically
Yeah.
did that to him. Like he literally jumped up into the air, kicked him into a fence, and then just like he kept running. I think another, like,
I gotta see that video after this.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really unfortunate that it had to come to the violence and the death and all that stuff.
Talked about last week with like even one death is too much. Indeed, 2 deaths, I think it was.
Yeah.
That's too much. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this, surprisingly less than I thought it'd be to institute such reform.
Yeah.
Like obviously it's a bad thing people died, but there can be some positives taken from that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like a lot of people are scared of, like revolutions are scary. I mean, I guess like a good analogy to this would be like the French Revolution. But I mean, this was a lot less violent than the French Revolution was, even though 72 people died and like 2,100 were injured. Like I'm not discrediting that. That's a huge amount of harm that came to people. But I mean, like the fear that people have of revolution is like, it's not unfounded. Definitely not. But it can have some positives like we've seen. But I guess this could instill some fear in other countries that are like this in, I don't know, like poorer regions, like Indonesia, for example. I mean, like this could, in theory, happen like it did in it did in Nepal and Indonesia. I mean, we saw like the One Piece flag flown in both places.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so it's just, and that's an important symbol. It not only represents like income inequality and just distaste people have for their corrupt governments, but yeah, like the just global struggle for freedom. And that could instill some fear in current governments, like the Indonesian one. I'm not saying anything could happen, but, anything is possible.
Sending a message to other countries in this position that the people can revolt if they need to. Like the success in Nepal could potentially lead to successes in different countries as well.
Does anyone know why they flew the One Piece flag?
So what it represents is like freedom, and I guess it's what the characters in the show like stood for, and like they went around spreading freedom in the show.
But it's also to represent like young people's interests. It's like, mostly young people watch One Piece, so it mostly represents like Gen Z.
I saw the photos and stuff. I just wasn't 100% clear on why they were using it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw this really cool photo of it with like a building on fire in the background.
Yeah, wasn't it like the presidential palace? Oh, I think I saw that exact same photo.
I didn't want to like say a building and be the wrong building, but yeah, I think so.
Hang on, let me look it up. It was, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that.
You got this.
Okay.
Do it for the clip.
Dubar? Maybe? I don't know. What was it? Was it like is it like the main government building? I think it was like the main government building. Yeah, it was
for the people watching this, picture One Piece flag, and it's cool.
And it's
if you like go to the
little visual.
If you go to the Wikipedia page for the whole thing, it's like it's like the main photo, like one of the main photos they use. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of impressive how quick, like Nicholas was talking about, it's kind of impressive how quickly they brought down the government and instituted a new one. Like all the protests only lasted for like 5 days. And in those 5 days, they got like a new government, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it kind of shows how the governments might not be as powerful as they thought.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely sends a message to other countries within the global south. Also, the people protesting in the global south, like Nepal, the governments are not invincible, and that they can probably institute change. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting how quickly it happened.
Weren't they still looking for interim parliamentary members though? I thought
I
they
think
were.
I think they were calling for the prime minister to disband parliament. I'm not sure if that
Well, yeah, he
happened.
dissolves parliament, but I don't know. I thought I heard that they were calling back people to, I don't know, maybe it was for voting for PM, like an interim prime
So
minister.
there are elections set for
March 5th,
March 5th,
2026.
2026. Yeah. I'm not sure if they're, well, I mean, they probably have to have interim members, right? Because, I mean, the government can't
Yeah.
really do anything without parliament. So who knows? We'll have to see about that.
How does this affect us?
In terms of how it affects the United States, I mean, there are a couple ways it could possibly affect us. There's the geopolitical, thing of Nepal is situated between two superpowers, India and China. I'm not sure that it was a big U.S. strategic ally, so I'm not sure it'll have much effect on our foreign affairs and such. But how it could connect to the U.S. sort of goes back to the fact that it kind of shows that protests can be effective against the government. Obviously, Nepal and the U.S., very two different situations. The level of corruption in Nepal, much, much more rampant than it is in the United States. The economic hardship that Nepal was facing is much different than the United States. So I'm not sure we would see something of that scale. But yeah, 72 people died. Obviously, we do not want violent protests in the United States. And obviously, we do not want violent revolution in the United States. But I think it sends a message that protests can be effective. And I think that goes for every country, including the US. All right. Thanks for listening to Simplifying the State. As we said before, make sure to rate the podcast, follow us on Instagram at Simplifying the State. We post things whenever a new episode drops, all that good stuff. Make sure to share with anybody you think would enjoy the show, and we will talk to you guys next time.